everyone. Welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, certified financial planner and owner of Elevation Financial. I'm on the web at elevationfinancial.com. Thanks for joining me today. As always, today we're going to debunk the most common personal finance lies on TikTok. It's going to be a fun episode. So some of my favorite lies are on here. So we're going to talk about that today. So scrolling through TikTok or YouTube or really any platform. I mean, I picked TikTok because it's, one of the most common platforms this stuff lives on, but really any social video platform, if you scroll for, a few minutes, you'll not find any shortage of people very confidently promising to unlock secrets of wealth building, claiming all sorts of things like you can retire by age 30 with one simple trick. A lot of them say that traditional financial advice is a scam designed to keep you poor. So much of it is dangerously wrong. So social media has democratized financial education in ways that, would have seemed possible a decade ago. Anyone with a smartphone can now share investing strategies, tax tips, money saving hacks with sometimes millions of people. The accessibility is really powerful, but it comes with a downside. There's no quality control, no accountability, and often no actual expertise behind the advice. And comes with some pretty real consequences. People sometimes make major financial decisions based on 60-second videos from creators who have never managed wealth themselves. They've never studied finance formally, and sometimes have direct financial incentives to mislead you. So we're going to talk about some of the most popular and prevalent personal finance tips, I say that in quotes, on social media that are actually myths or at best misleading. So number one, just buy rental properties and let tenants pay your mortgage. One of the most pervasive myths on financial TikTok is the real estate investing myth. They say that real estate investing is foolproof. It's an easy path to passive income, and anyone can do it with enough hard work. The pitch usually looks like this: buy a rental property, charge enough rent to cover your mortgage payment, and watch the money roll in while you build equity. Sounds great, right? Your tenants essentially buy the house for you while you sit back and collect the profits. Some influencers take it even further. They'll show you their supposed portfolio of multiple properties and claim they went from broke to financial free in just a few years. So the formula sounds really simple. You save up for a down payment, you buy a property in a hot market, you rent it out for more than your monthly costs, and repeat. Scale it up, 5 or 10 properties, and you'll never have to work again, right? The presentations are often very slick. You see really carefully edited videos of beautiful properties, screenshots of rental income deposits, lifestyle content showing someone working from a laptop on the beach. And the message seems to be it's easier than you think. What they don't show you is all the other stuff behind the scenes. So what's the reality of real estate investing? Real estate can absolutely be a wealth building tool, but calling it passive income is misleading and is not really the whole story. So the math looks really clean in a 60-second video. But it rarely works out that way in practice. So when influencers show you rental income covering the mortgage, they're typically ignoring a long list of other expenses. Things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, property management fees, HOA dues, and vacancy periods. All those things eat into your returns. A good rule of thumb is that those costs can easily make up 30 to 50% of your rental income. So then there's the reality of being a landlord. Tenants call at 2 a.m. when pipes burst. HVAC systems fail in the middle of summer. Roofs need replacing. Tenants pay late. Tenants damage your property. Some need to be legally evicted. That's expensive and time consuming. You could hire a property manager to handle those issues, but that typically costs another 8 to 12% of your monthly rent. The idea that you can simply charge enough rent to cover your cost is also sometimes optimistic. Rental rates are determined by the market, not what you need to break even. If you overpay for a property in the wrong location, you might find yourself subsidizing your tenants rather than the other way around. Financing adds more complexity, and that sometimes gets glossed over. Yes, you can leverage other people's money through a mortgage, but that cuts both ways. If the property values decline or you have extended vacancies, you're still on the hook for that mortgage payment. So during economic downturns, for example, some landlords find themselves trapped. They can't sell without taking a loss, but they can't afford to keep paying the mortgage either. The influencers who claim they built massive portfolios quickly often leave out some important details. Some of them use some creative financing strategies that are really, really high risk. They're not recommended. Others started with a lot of capital or family connections. Many of them are selling courses or mentorship programs, which means their real income comes from teaching real estate rather than the properties themselves. Real estate investing requires significant upfront capital, ongoing financial reserves for unexpected expenses, time and expertise to manage properties or vet property management companies, and the ability to weather market fluctuations. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not passive income in the way most people understand the term. That doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in real estate, but it means you should go in with realistic expectations and really knowing what you're getting into. For many people, their first and best real estate investment is simply buying a home to live in, building equity slowly over time without the complications of being a landlord. All right, next tip. Let's talk about this. Form an LLC and write off everything. This is one of my favorites. So, another viral claim that circulates constantly is that forming an LLC is a magic tax cheat code. The typical pitch suggests that once you have a business entity, suddenly everything becomes tax deductible. You can write off your whole life, right? Your car, business expense, your phone, write it off. Vacation to Hawaii, call it a business trip and deduct the whole thing. According to these influencers, wealthy people use this strategy to pay almost nothing in taxes, and you can too, right? Some versions of the myth go even further. They tell you that an LLC protects you from the IRS, that it shields all your personal assets, or that it fundamentally changes your tax situation in a dramatic way. The underlying message here is that forming an LLC is step one to keeping more of your money and paying less to the government. The videos often feature creators showing off expensive purchases while winking at the camera and saying something like, "Oh, it's a write-off." And they claim that it's a simple loophole that lets you live a lavish lifestyle. And the only reason you're not doing it is because you haven't figured out the secret yet, right? So that's oversimplified at best, but often just fundamentally wrong. And that can be have serious legal and financial implications. So what's the truth about business deductions? So what's actually true? Yes, legitimate business expenses are tax deductible. If you run a real business and you incur expenses that are ordinary and necessary for that business, you can deduct them. It's a normal part of the tax code. It's not a secret loophole or anything. But here's what the influencers leave out. The IRS has really specific rules about what qualifies as a business expense, and they actively investigate people who abuse those rules. An expense is only deductible if it's what's called ordinary and necessary for your business. Ordinary means it's common and accepted in your industry. Necessary means it's helpful and appropriate for your business. The expense also needs to be directly related to producing income for your business. That means you can't just slap a business label on personal expenses and call them deductions. Your daily commute to your office, for example, not deductible. A family vacation where you took a business call, the IRS will likely disallow the entire deduction. The luxury car you bought for personal use but occasionally drive to business meetings, you can only deduct the portion that's actually used for business, and you need detailed mileage logs to prove it. The IRS is especially skeptical of businesses that show losses year after year while the owner maintains an expensive lifestyle. They call this the hobby loss rule. So if your business doesn't show a profit in at least 3 of the last 5 years, the IRS can determine it's not actually a business at all. It's just a hobby. When that happens, all those deductions you claimed get disallowed and you owe back taxes plus penalties and interest. Forming an LLC doesn't change any of this. An LLC is a legal structure that can give you liability protection and may offer some flexibility in how you're taxed, but it doesn't give you special permission to deduct personal expenses. By default, a single member LLC is taxed the same as a sole proprietorship. The IRS doesn't even see it as a separate entity for tax purposes unless you would like to be taxed as an S corp. So the idea that an LLC shields you from the IRS is pretty dangerous. If you commit tax fraud, the corporate veil doesn't protect you. The IRS can and will pursue you personally in most cases. Worse, deliberately falsifying deductions isn't just a civil tax matter where you owe money, it can be criminal fraud as well. What often happens is that people follow this TikTok advice, deduct everything liberally, and then get audited a few years later. The IRS disallows the improper deductions, calculates what you actually owe, and then adds penalty and interest on top. And those penalties can be substantial, plus the interest that compounds over time. Does that mean you shouldn't take legitimate business deductions? No. If you run a real business and have real expenses, you should deduct them. But keep good records, understand the rules, and be honest about what's actually a business expense. The wealthy people who legally minimize their taxes aren't doing it with simple LLC tricks from social media. They're working with experienced professionals, financial planners, tax pros, attorneys who understand business strategies. Things like, charitable giving, retirement account optimization, business structure planning. Those are legal, but they require expertise and proper execution. So if you're serious about optimizing your taxes, talk to a qualified tax professional who understands your situation. All right, next. Next tip is put everything in a trust to avoid paying taxes. One of my favorite TikTok lies. The trust myth is one of the most sophisticated sounding pieces of misinformation floating around. Influencers tell you that wealthy people use trusts to avoid paying taxes entirely. And if you're smart, you'll do it too. They claim that putting your assets in a trust means the IRS can't touch them. They make trusts sound like a special tax-free zone. You'll see videos with titles like "Why the Rich Don't Pay Taxes" or "The Trust Strategy They Don't Want You to Know About." A lot of times they're selling courses or they sell templates for setting up trusts. And there's a fee for this, obviously. The problem is trusts don't really work that way. So what do trusts actually do? A trust is a legal arrangement where one party holds and manages assets for the benefit of another. And so trusts are typically used in estate planning, sometimes asset protection, sometimes wealth transfer, but tax avoidance isn't necessarily, doesn't really work the way influencers claim it does. So most trusts don't provide tax benefits during your lifetime. For example, a revocable living trust, which is pretty common, is transparent to the IRS. Income generated is taxed to you personally. And the primary benefit is helping your assets avoid probate after you die, not reducing tax liability. Irrevocable trusts are different. When you put assets into an irrevocable trust, you're giving up control of those assets, and they're typically not counted as part of your estate. But the trust itself might owe taxes. So it's not necessarily working the way influencers claim in those cases as well. It's really for estate tax purposes. There's an offshore strategy people mention sometimes. Those strategies require extensive reporting to the IRS, and they're designed to defer taxes usually rather than eliminate them. And there's a lot of complexity there. Influencers kind of gloss over. So setting up a trust from a social media course or an online template is pretty risky. Trust law varies by state, and a trust that is not drafted properly can be invalidated or have unintended financial consequences. Trusts are specialized tools for specific situations. They're typically for people with very high net worth who are concerned about estate taxes. If your estate is well below the estate tax threshold, the tax benefits of complex trust planning are pretty irrelevant. So if you genuinely need a trust or think you do, talk to an estate planning attorney. Don't listen to social media advice claiming that a trust will eliminate all your taxes. All right, next, quit your job and get rich day trading. There's a financial myth going around that is pretty common that, if you quit your job and day trade, you can make millions of dollars. People claim, oh, I never went back to my 9 to 5 because I made $5,000 a day doing day trading. They show them working from a laptop at a coffee shop or at a beach, checking their phone, watching profits roll in. And they claim they started with just a few $1,000s and then turned that into 6 figures within 6 months. Often, these influencers are offering to teach you their secrets by joining their private Discord community for a fee or paying a fee to get their premium course. They kind of make it sound like you'll get financial freedom by just buying this course from them or this kit or whatever it is. Honestly, they likely make a lot more money selling their courses as opposed to actual day trading. So what are the realities of day trading? The statistics are pretty clear. Academic studies consistently show that the vast majority of day traders lose money. There's one comprehensive study that found that only about 1% of day traders are able to predictably and reliably earn positive returns after their expenses. So if you decide to day trade, you've got anywhere from a 1 to 3% chance of making profits. Those are worse odds than at the casino a lot of times. Also, you're competing against professionals with sophisticated algorithms, whole teams of analysts, and access to information you don't have. Short-term price movements are pretty random and fairly impossible to predict consistently. The influencer who shows you their winning trades conveniently forget to mention all the losing trades they made along the way. So when the influencers show you their proof of profits, be skeptical. Screenshots can be faked. One good trade might just be a small portion of their overall activity. They might be trading in a demo account, or they might have just gotten lucky and they're calling that a repeatable system. So the real kind of tell here is what they're selling. If someone has truly discovered a method to consistently generate massive returns with minimal effort, why would they sell the information for a few $1,000s? Why wouldn't they just keep trading and build wealth that way? And the answer is because the course is the product. You're not the customer learning their system, you're the customer who is the system. It doesn't mean all trading is bad. Long-term investing in a diversified portfolio has created substantial wealth for lots of people. The key difference is time horizon and strategy. Buy and hold investing allows you to benefit from the general upward trajectory of the market over time. And, that minimizes transaction costs, avoids the psychological pitfalls of constant trading. And that can be practical. So be really skeptical of anyone promising quick wealth through day trading, especially if they're trying to sell you something. The people getting rich from day trading courses are the ones selling the courses, not the ones taking them. All right, next, let's talk about side hustles. Here's the claim. Start this side hustle and make $10,000 a month working from home, or whatever the number is. So the side hustle myth is pretty pervasive. Influencers will often post videos showing themselves working in their pajamas, sipping coffee on their couch, while they claim to earn thousands of dollars per month. The formula is always, simple. They discovered an opportunity that requires no special skills, minimal startup costs, and just a few hours of work per week, right? Sometimes it's drop shipping, sometimes it's print on demand or affiliate marketing or selling digital products. The specifics change, but the pitch is pretty much the same. This is easy money. Anyone can do it if they just take action. The videos show bank account screenshots, fancy purchases, lifestyle upgrades, all supposedly funded by this simple side hustle. Then comes the hook. To learn exactly how they do it, you need to click the link in their bio. Maybe it's a free webinar, turns into a high pressure sales pitch. Maybe it's a course that costs anywhere from $497 to thousands of dollars. The reality is usually a lot less glamorous. So what are they not telling you? Most of these side hustles require significantly more work, more skill, and more capital than the influencers let on. Drop shipping is pretty intensive. It involves finding reliable suppliers, managing customer service complaints, handling returns, running paid advertising campaigns, and competing with thousands of other sellers. The profit margins are often razor thin, and many people lose money on advertising before they even make their first sale. Print on demand, similar challenges. You're competing in an oversaturated market where standing out requires either exceptional design skills or significant marketing spend. Most people selling make little to nothing. Affiliate marketing can work, but it typically requires building an audience first. Growing that audience takes time and often years of consistent content creation before you see meaningful income. The influencer selling you the course already has that audience, which is why affiliate marketing works for them. The influencers showing you their earnings are often being deliberately misleading as well. The screenshot showing $10,000 in revenue may not account for expenses, refunds, taxes, and their actual profit might be a fraction of what they're actually showing you. In many cases, the bulk of their income comes from selling courses about the side hustle rather than the side hustle itself. And that creates a really problematic incentive structure. The business model isn't really drop shipping or print on demand. It's selling the dream of drop shipping or print on demand to people who actually believe it's easy. The truth about legitimate side hustles is less exciting, but a lot more honest. Real additional income usually comes from leveraging skills you already have, or maybe you're willing to develop. Things like freelance writing, consulting, tutoring, skilled trades, all these things can generate real money, but they require actual expertise and actual effort. Building a business, even a small business, takes time, takes persistence, and a lot of times it's failed multiple attempts before something actually works. So before you spend any money on a course or program, ask yourself, is this person making money from the opportunity itself or from teaching others about the opportunity? If it's the latter, you're not buying a strategy, you're buying the sales pitch. All right, next. Crypto. This crypto will make you a millionaire. You've heard it all before, right? Crypto advice on TikTok operates at a fever pitch, really. It's one of the most prevalent bits of financial misinformation out there. Influencers will excitedly promote a specific coin or token or promises that sound too good to be true. It's because they are. You'll see claims like this coin is about to 100x, or get in now before it's too late, or I turned $500 into $50,000 in 3 months. The presentation they're sharing is often designed to trigger FOMO, which is fear of missing out. They'll show you charts with dramatic upward trajectories. They'll talk about upcoming catalysts that will send prices soaring, and they'll create urgency by suggesting that the window of opportunity is closing. Many of the influencers are heavily invested in the coins they're promoting, which means they have a direct financial interest in getting you to buy. Others are being paid by crypto projects to promote their tokens, though they don't often disclose this early on. Some are running pump and dump schemes where they accumulate a position in low volume coins, hype it to their followers, and then sell into the buying pressure they've created. So what's the reality of crypto investing? Crypto is an extremely volatile and speculative asset class. Yes, there are some early investors in Bitcoin or Ethereum that made some life-changing money, but for every success story, there are tons of people who lost substantial amounts chasing the next big thing. The crypto market is largely unregulated, which means it's subject to fraud, manipulation, other scams. Projects can collapse overnight. Founders can disappear with investors' funds. And unlike traditional securities, you have very little legal recourse when things go wrong. When an influencer tells you a specific coin is about to explode, ask yourself, how do they know this? More often, they don't actually know anything. They're speculating, hoping to profit from the attention that they generate. The coins that influencers promote most aggressively are often the riskiest. Established cryptocurrencies don't offer the dramatic overnight gains that make for viral content, so influencers focus on obscure altcoins, often with tiny market caps. Those assets can move dramatically on small amounts of volume, which is why they're attractive for manipulation. Many people who follow the advice end up buying near the peak after influencers and their inner circle have already accumulated positions at lower prices. So when you buy, you're providing the exit liquidity for people who got in earlier. By the time the hype reaches TikTok, the easy money has often already been made. And then there's the tax implications. The tax implications are more complex than influencers will acknowledge. Crypto trading is generally a taxable event. So if you trade crypto, it could be a taxable event. You could owe significant taxes even if your portfolio is down. So does this mean you should never invest in crypto? No, not necessarily. A small allocation to crypto, maybe 5% or less of your portfolio, might be appropriate for investors who understand and can tolerate the risks. But this is fundamentally different from betting heavily on specific coins based on TikTok tips. So if you do choose to invest in crypto, stick to established projects, never invest more than you can afford to lose completely, and be extremely skeptical of anyone promoting specific coins, especially if they're trying to create urgency. The best investment opportunities rarely come with a countdown timer or a link from someone's bio. All right. So the last one on our list is use infinite banking to become your own bank. This is one of my favorites. You see it all the time. One of the more complex sounding strategies out there is it's called infinite banking. Influencers will present this as a secret wealth building hack that the rich have been using for decades. The pitch typically goes like this. You can become your own bank by using a specially designed whole life insurance policy, borrow against it tax-free whenever you want, and continue earning returns on your money even while you're using it. Sounds great, right? Sounds like financial wizardry. You put money into a whole life policy, cash value grows, you borrow against it to buy things like cars, invest in real estate, fund business adventures, maybe buy crypto, whatever. Meanwhile, your policy continues earning dividends as if you never took the money out. You pay yourself back with interest instead of paying the bank, and that interest goes back into your own policy. So it all sounds fabulous, right? The language used is deliberately empowering too. It plays on your emotions. They say things like you're taking control of your money. You're breaking free from traditional banks, right? Some influencers even suggest this information is something that financial institutions don't want you to know. Makes it sound really, really spicy, right? So to set this up properly, of course, they promise that you've got to work with someone who specializes in these policies. And then conveniently, many of the influencers promoting infinite banking are insurance agents or are affiliated with people who sell these policies to earn commissions. So, what is infinite banking in reality? Infinite banking is based on using dividend paying whole life insurance policies as a personal financing tool. When you pay premiums into a whole life policy, part of that money goes toward the death benefit and expenses, while the other part builds cash value. After several years, you can borrow against that cash value. But here's where people leave some things out. Whole life insurance is expensive. The premiums are a lot higher than term life insurance. And in the early years, not much of your premium is actually going toward building cash value. Most of it goes to commissions and fees. It can take a decade or more before you have substantial cash value to borrow against. So when you borrow from your policy, you're paying interest on that loan. And the idea that this interest somehow goes back to you is misleading. It goes back to the insurance company. If you don't pay the loan back, it reduces your death benefit or it can cause your policy to lapse. So the returns on whole life insurance cash value are also pretty modest. They're usually around 3 to 5% annually once the policy matures. That's generally lower than historical stock market returns. Infinite banking can make sense for a very specific type of person. This is someone with a high income who has already maxed out all other tax advantaged retirement accounts, has a legitimate need for permanent life insurance, and understands they're prioritizing access over capital or access to capital over maximum returns. And for most people, this describes almost nobody. The strategy also requires a lot of upfront capital. You typically need to fund these policies with tens of thousands of dollars annually for years before the strategy becomes viable. And what makes this particularly problematic is that the people selling infinite banking earn large commissions on whole life policies. And that creates a massive incentive to present the strategy as universally beneficial when it's actually appropriate for very few people. For most people, buying term life insurance for protection and investing the difference will produce a lot better financial outcomes. So if someone on TikTok is promoting infinite banking and encouraging you to set up a policy, there's a very good chance they're earning a commission from that recommendation. All right, those are some of my favorites. So what about some frequently asked questions about financial advice on social media? Let's go through some of these. So first, how can I tell if a financial influencer is trustworthy? Look for credentials. Legitimate financial professionals typically hold designations like the CFP, which is a certified financial planner. That's the designation I hold. CPA, certified public accountant, maybe a CFA, chartered financial analyst, or other similar designations. These credentials require lots of education, testing, and adherence to ethical standards. So be wary of influencers who avoid mentioning their qualifications or these vague titles like financial expert or financial professional or wealth coach or something. Also, look at their motivations. Are they earning money from the advice itself through commissions, affiliates, course sales? Their recommendations might be biased toward what profits them rather than what helps you. So also, next question, what are red flags that the financial advice might be misleading? Several warning signs should make you skeptical. Promises of get rich quick schemes, guaranteed returns, all those things are red flags. Legitimate investments have risk. Anyone promising certainty is either lying or selling something inappropriate for most people. Creating urgency is a warning sign as well. Phrases like act now or limited opportunity, limited time opportunity, benefit before it's too late. These are high pressure tactics and they're designed to make you act without thinking critically. Be cautious of advice that sounds too simple. Personal finance has nuance and one size fits all solutions rarely work for everyone. So if someone's suggesting a complex strategy and making it sound simple, they're likely oversimplifying it. Next question. Should I ever pay for financial education from social media influencers? Great question. Just approach it with extreme skepticism. Most of the information sold in expensive courses is available for free through legitimate sources like financial planning websites, government resources, even public libraries. Remember those? They're still around. Before you pay for a course, research the instructor very carefully. Look for reviews from independent sources. Check for any regulatory complaints or disciplinary actions against them. And also ask yourself why they're selling an education course rather than simply implementing the strategy themselves. If someone truly has a method to generate wealth like that, why would they be selling a course about it? So be critical as you ask questions. Next question. How do I know if financial advice applies to my situation? Generic advice rarely accounts for specific circumstances, things like your tax situation, your income level, risk tolerance, time horizon, existing debt, and financial goals. Those are all important when making decisions. So be cautious of advice that ignores all those variables. For example, someone telling you to invest in real estate without knowing how much capital you have, or a credit score, or market knowledge, that's incomplete guidance. Someone suggesting you max out a certain type of account without understanding your emergency fund or debt situation could be problematic. So make sure that the advice takes into account your specific situation or those nuances. Next question. What should I do if I've already followed bad advice from social media? Don't panic if this is the case. A lot of financial mistakes can be corrected or mitigated with proper planning. So if you've invested in something risky or inappropriate, consult with a legitimate financial advisor, attorney, or tax professional about your options. Don't make impulsive decisions to try to recover because that can often make it worse. So if you've purchased courses or programs that didn't deliver, document everything. Research whether you have grounds for a refund or complaint. And some credit card companies offer purchase protection that might help you as well. So contact them. And then just learn from experience. Understand why you made the mistake and make better decisions going forward. Next question. Where can I find legitimate financial education? So there are some really good free or low-cost sources out there. For example, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau offers educational resources on a lot of topics. Again, public libraries, they're free. They still exist. They're great. There are books established by financial experts who aren't primarily selling courses or products, and they can often provide good knowledge. Look for authors with legitimate credentials and a track record of fiduciary responsibility. Also, consider working with a fee-only fiduciary financial advisor or a flat fee financial advisor who charges for their service rather than earning commissions or products. Advisors like that are more likely to provide objective guidance that are aligned with your best interest. And then final question, is all financial advice on TikTok bad? Not necessarily. I'm on TikTok, so I can't be totally against it. Some credentialed professionals, like me, for example, use social media to share genuinely helpful information and to break down complex topics. The key is to learn to distinguish between educational content and sales pitches. Good financial content typically acknowledges nuance, discusses benefits and risks. It doesn't promise specific outcomes, and it doesn't pressure you to act immediately. It often encourages you to do additional research, or to consult with professionals before making major decisions. So you can use social media as a starting point for learning, but not your sole source of financial guidance. So if something you see is interesting, research it further through multiple credible sources before you take action. All right, so let's wrap up with the truth. What's the truth about building wealth? Building wealth isn't complicated, but it's not quick either. But that doesn't make for viral TikTok content. Doesn't sound exciting, right? The actual path to financial security involves unglamorous fundamentals that have worked for decades. Things like spend less than you earn, build an emergency fund, eliminate high interest debt, invest consistently in diversified funds, take advantage of tax advantage retirement accounts, protect yourself with appropriate insurance, let compound interest work over time. None of this is exciting. None of it promises overnight transformation. You won't become a millionaire in 6 months following these principles. But you also won't lose everything chasing schemes promoted by people who profit from your desperation or your inexperience. These influencers selling courses, promoting risky investments, and promising easy money are building their wealth by monetizing your desire for a shortcut. Their business model depends on you believing that traditional advice is outdated or that they possess secret knowledge that's unavailable anywhere else. And the truth is simpler and less thrilling. Wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires patience, consistency, and discipline. It means making reasonable decisions repeatedly over many years. For most people, that means living below their means and investing the difference in boring, diversified portfolios. If you want legitimate financial guidance, work with a fiduciary financial advisor who is legally obligated to act in your best interest. Read books by established experts. Follow evidence-based strategies that have been proven over time. And the next time a TikTok influencer promises you can get rich quick with one weird trick, Remember this, if it sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. The people getting rich from these schemes are the ones selling them, not the ones buying them. So your financial future is too important to entrust to these viral videos. So keep that in mind. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you being a listener. If you would like to find me online, I'm pretty much on every social platform. And you can find me also on my website, which is elevationfinancial.com. You're welcome to send a note through my website, or better yet, if you want to book a free consultation, you can do that right there online. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.